So the background of this is that, as you will see, I grew up in Thailand for most of my childhood. My parents were Presbyterian missionaries, and in fact, here I can show you how we were back in the 1950s. So Clifford and Mary, my parents, and my father was a Presbyterian minister. My mother was a musician who did all kinds of wonderful music things in Bangkok. And then the siblings were brother Paul, he's the oldest there, and then me, looking absolutely the same as I do today. My sister Mary. And so anyhow, we had been talking actually 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago, we did a family trip to China, where I was born and where my parents had been missionaries, and had a good time there. But the question was Thailand, since my siblings and I had all grown up there. And my sister and I were also somewhat concerned because my older brother, Paul, was having health issues. And as you will see, he had to take special care, but we were able to get him there and fully. So that was a great thing. So anyway, we went out in 1951. My parents stayed there until 1972. And at that time, there was a couple of years of leave in the States. So for me, I was in the States for 5th grade and for 10th grade, back to college while my parents were still in Thailand, and that was 1966. So anyway, that's just a little bit of background for that, and for our decision that we really wanted to do a family tour. So who did this involve? So this was the immediate family. These were the Chaffees, from that. And I think you recognize my brother and my sister and me. Between me and my sister are my 3 sons, from right to left, Conrad, the oldest, Philip, and then Tim. And at the bottom, the 3 grandsons, who are from the left to right, Caleb, Gideon, and Joshua. So those were the Chaffees in the group. Now, we added to that spouses and partners. And so from left to right, that's Max, who's Philip's partner, Bex right beyond that, who is Tim's partner, Jan, who is Paul's wife, and over on the right, in between the boys there is Luba, my daughter-in-law, who's Conrad's wife. And then, same spot, this was our whole group. And so all of the people you just saw there, plus some others, from right to left, that is Sergei and Tanya Schwartzman, who was the mother and stepfather of Luba, my daughter-in-law, over there. Heading on over, just to the left of me is my sister-in-law, Chris, that was Barb's sister, and one of her 3 sons, Jonathan. Another son, Peter, was on the trip, but Peter kept on going off by himself, so he didn't get many pictures of him. Then heading over beside Jan, Raquel Beal, a very close friend of ours, whose husband, David Beal, was a fabulous Jewish historian who just died in the last few months, or actually back in a year ago. And then on the left, you have Mark and Debbie Epstein, great members of the Binghamton community and old friends of ours. So that was the group. It was a big group to travel with. We had buses all the way and so forth. But the whole thing did work out pretty well. Now,
but who was it who arranged all the bus transfers and so on and so forth?
Right. So my sister and I did most of the negotiations, but we did not do those. So what we did was to find a tour company that did do private tours. This is a private tour, and so we worked with them. And the nice thing there was that we decided the itinerary. We decided where we wanted to go and so forth, and they accommodated that. So anyway, that worked very well. So now, in red, you see the places that we went in the course of the 2 weeks. Let's see if I can. I'm not going to use my pointer because people online wouldn't be able to see that. Bangkok here. Ayutthaya was a day trip from Bangkok that we will see. It's an old capital of Thailand. Up in the north is the major northern city, a wonderful city called Chiang Mai. And then at the end of that, we went all the way down here to a place called Krabi. I'm losing that now. Many of you have probably heard of Phuket. That's the famous one. Krabi is across the waterway. It's much like Phuket, but supposedly not as as quite built up. Although when we got there, it turned out to be fairly built up. So those were the main places that we went. And again, we had 2 weeks in which we went. So Bangkok, we began. Uh, the photo on the right is not my photo. I don't do such nice ones like that, but I just wanted to use it to give a sense. Bangkok is a gigantic 21st century city. It's huge. It's got modern infrastructure. It's got some crazy buildings, such as this. It also had a building not too long after we were there. There was a huge earthquake, and you may have remembered the videos of this one building collapsing that was almost complete. So anyway, so you have a lot of imaginative architecture and so forth in Bangkok. So Bangkok was where we spent our first several days going from one place to another. And please do interrupt me because probably I'm going to not have a lot of time by the end of this for open questions, just because I have a lot of slides. And so, yeah.
You lived there during the Vietnam War?
Well, I was so in, yes, in part. I mean, I went to high school in India. It was a boarding school in India, and I was there basically from 62 to 66. So the Vietnam War was going strong by the end of that. And my parents were in there until early 70s, so they were there.
Was it hard to be an American in Thailand during the Vietnam War?
Well, no, I mean, at that point, the Thais were very close to the Americans. The Thais were basically supporting the American effort. I mean, there were lots of problems in terms of being anti-Vietnam and so forth in terms of the war. But in fact, when I was in high school, that was kind of still far away, from my own experience. So the first day we went, and really the central tourist spot in Bangkok is the Royal Palace. It's a gigantic affair, as you can see from here, and the part that is really open to the public is primarily the area on the left here in that left corner, and it is quite spectacular. There's some other areas over here that I will point to, but in any case, this does give one a sense of this complex, which is very, very important. It's the kind of the political heart of the country, and it's the kind of the heart of Buddhism as well. Thailand is overwhelmingly Buddhist as a country.
Now, when you were a child, did you visit that? Were you able to visit?
Oh, yeah. And we would go usually when my parents were entertaining guests from abroad. So I saw lots of those. So this just gives you a sense. I'm not trying to give you all of it. But that's a Garuda, I believe one of the demonic guardians of the place.
Was it like 17th century?
These are probably later, 18th to 19th century. Thailand only, well, I'll talk about the history a little bit later, but 17th century is pre-Bangkok for that. The architecture here is very much the kind of thing, especially the temple on the right, the kind of architecture that you will see in Buddhist temples all over the country. And as a matter of fact, over in Castle Creek, if you go over the top with that Buddhist establishment there, that's Laotian, but the temple there is modeled on, this same basic style that we see here. A couple more. There's Conrad and his family, but the figure up here is an interesting one, very, very important to the Thais, and this was taken basically a telephoto from outside because you can't go in with photographs. So this is known as the Emerald Buddha, and the whole statue is of emerald. It's not that big, but one of the elements of that is that they, for the Emerald Buddha, is that the king is supposed to change the garments of the Buddha, of this Emerald Buddha every season. So it's a part of the kind of the seasonal ritual involved with Buddhism and Thai kingship.
You're saying the king goes in and changes.
Supposedly, that's the idea. The
He
robes.
Change clothing on the figure.
Is changing the robe there. That's what would be changed. Nothing else would change. So very, very famous, and the most restricted part of the whole royal palace, of the areas that are open to the public. The most spectacular one is a place called Wat Po, And this was the reclining Buddha. The Buddha, shortly before his death, if you will, he goes off to nirvana, is reclining and talks to his disciples and so forth. So the reclining Buddha is a motif that you will see across Asia in terms of Buddhist art.
Sarcophagus?
No, it's just a big statue. And you can get a sense of the people on the left. So, and here is another one. There's the people, and that's the bottom of the feet. I mean, I have a bunch of details there, but not time to spend on that. So that's a spectacular thing to see, and it's within the overall complex of the royal palace, but not at the most central part of it. Now, another thing, this is a temple across the river, directly across the river from the royal palace. It's called Wat Arun, very famous. It's also known colloquially as a Temple of the Dawn. You can't see this here, but in fact, a lot of the work on the surfaces and so forth was done with pieces of china. With the trade with China, China was often, with the country of China, porcelain was often used as a kind of dust, and they had lots and lots of it. So they used pieces of china to decorate this Temple of Dawn. Sort of not quite a mosaic because it's not a particular style. It's just sort of put in there. The two young women here, for some reason, this place is very popular for people to come and rent period costumes, and they sort of like Williamsburg or something. And so they go and do it. There were lots of them. This was one of the more attractive ones, just to give a sense, and they take great delight in doing that. So that was the end of that immediate Bangkok part. One of the evenings we did a Bangkok evening food tour. My son Philip was the one to organize that, and just a couple of slides here about that. So that's Debbie Epstein there, and my daughter-in-law Tim is the background in Bex. On the right, just a street scene. This is the Chinatown part of Bangkok, just to give a sense of what it was like at night there. The tour was maybe a couple of hours going from place to place and getting different kinds of things to eat. So a little bit of history before I move on to the next couple of slides, and that has to do with the historical background of the different things we're seeing. If you go back earlier, even before that sort of Ayutthaya period, I mean, there were states and so forth in what is today Thailand, going back a couple of millennia or so. I mean, very, very old, with different kinds of things. For the most part, there was no single monarchy that encompassed the entire country. There were around the 12th and 13th centuries, for example, where it says Cambodia, you had at that point the Great Khmer Empire, Angkor Wat, and the like, so it was very important. In the area of what is today Thailand, one very important long-standing area was called Lan Na. And in fact, Chiang Mai is right over here within that. And when we get to Chiang Mai, that's part of Lan Na culture more than Thai culture. The Thais themselves, who evolved into sort of the Thai people and linguistically and so forth, for the most part came from southern China and migrated their way into Southeast Asia, and sort of mixed with lots of other different groups. So for our purposes, though, the key things, the Ayutthaya period was a period where for a period of time, the Ayutthaya, as you can see here, was very large and very successful. They had their ups and downs with different things. One thing you don't see here is that the Burmese were a major force throughout this time, and more often than not at war with the Lan Na, with the Thai and others. And as a matter of fact, the end of the Ayutthaya period came when a Burmese army came and sacked the capital of Ayutthaya, destroying the buildings and so forth. And what happened in the response to that is that the capital of the Thais moved down to the Bangkok area. And so that happened in 1767. There's a brief period known as the Thonburi period. Thonburi is actually the part of Bangkok on the west side of the major river, the Chao Phraya River. The east side is Bangkok, and although today it's all Greater Bangkok. So there was a brief, powerful king who was also pretty nasty and unloved in that period. And then there was a coup, and the capital moved across the river into Bangkok, so that into what we know it today. The period itself, Ratanakosin period, that's part of the longer title for Bangkok in Thai. Although the short title for Bangkok in Thai is Krunthep, not Bangkok. But in any case, but the family was known as the Chaffee family. And that dynasty continues on down to today. The current king of Thailand, much unloved, to tell the truth, is in fact in the part of the Chaffee dynasty. So just a thing to keep in mind, because the next several slides, I am going to be talking about Ayutthaya and at least a part of the Chaffee dynasty. But this also illustrates, in terms of the Chaffee period, 1782 and following. This one is from 1900. This is a map of Thailand as it had more or less evolved by that time. And one of the key things to note is to the east you have the British Raj, you had Burma. To the west you had French Indochina. To the south you had British Malaya. Thailand is the only country in Southeast Asia that was never colonized. They are very proud of that. And in fact, I think that the term Thailand is relatively new. They used Siam before, but Muang Thai means the land of the free. And so that is something to keep in mind. The 19th century monarchs were very savvy, and they were able to preserve the independence of Thailand against the French and the British, all of whom wanted to take it over. And they do that successfully. Diplomacy. I mean, they had their own military and so forth, but a lot of it was diplomacy. They lost portions. I mean, at one point they had, this might have been before that. A good portion of what is today Cambodia was a part of the Chaffee dynasty, Thailand.
Well, that, entirely sort of, well, not entirely light, but mostly light, the king, what's it called? The King and I,
Right.
The story of Anna and the King of Siam.
Exactly.
The background to all of that is precisely the negotiations with the British
Absolutely.
against, being overtaken and so on. And indeed, why the king had Anna come in the first place was to teach the court English and English culture for that very reason.
Yeah. So I'll have some visual examples of that coming up here, but that point is very, very well taken. So Ayutthaya, the ruins of Ayutthaya, it's not that old. Most of this was when it was sacked in 1767. But so you do have these ruins, some of it in still spectacularly wonderful shape, and they've not tried to rebuild the ruins. So they're sort of leaving them as they are. This is a lovely Buddha, that is sitting untouched there, in amidst some of the ruins there. Some more here. Lots and lots of these chedi, stupa-like buildings, that one has. The ones that have survived.
Inside them, John, or is that just
No, it's all outside. Those are solid pieces. Yeah.
Was it for just purposes built?
Yeah, these are all religious. I mean, they within the ruins, they did have the old royal city and so forth, and we have nothing of the old palaces left. I will show you one illustration of what it might have been like before that. This one I love. This is a Buddha's head that had got sort of enmeshed within a major tree, and the picturesque. And
Are any of these funerary temples?
No, I mean, in Angkor Wat, there are some specifically funerary temples, that one has. These chedi sometimes often did have relics, or especially the ashes of famous monks and things like that. I'm not sure how many of these had it. I know that from other temples, that was one of the kinds of things that one had. But here, this is a Portuguese painting that was done in 15 the middle of the 16th century. So the Portuguese, were actually maybe middle of the 17th, this is 1600s. The Portuguese were very active throughout Asia at this time, and in fact, Ayutthaya, it was a fairly cosmopolitan place. They had, by the certainly the late 17th century, there were Portuguese, there were Spanish, there were British, there were Chinese. There were lots and lots of Chinese immigrants, and as a matter of fact, the Chaffee family itself was in large part Chinese at the beginning. So it was that. But you can see here now all we have are the ruins. What it perhaps did look a little like. It is right near the Chao Phraya River, and I think these canals fed into the major river that headed on south, which meant that they had easy access to maritime Asia beyond that. So that's Ayutthaya. And then this is all on the same day trip out of Bangkok, because the next place is the Ayutthaya, but this is the summer palace of the current dynasty. And the buildings here were built mainly in the 1870s into the 1880s, right around the time of Anna and so forth. And so the monarchs at this point they were modernizing monarchs. I mean, one of the things they realized for Thailand to maintain their independence, they would have to modernize their military, et cetera. They would have to engage in global trade in ways that were competitive with, the East India Company and the Dutch and so forth. And so they made great ventures in doing that, and also to make themselves more respectable to the Western powers. And so you see this wonderful mix here of these buildings left and right. Those could easily have come out of Europe someplace, right? But then you have this beautiful pagoda in the middle, which was, I think, a funeral remembrance of a queen, I believe, if I have that right. The park is quite large, and I have lots and lots of different pictures of it, but I'm not going to use a lot of them. But just to give you a sense, they had, apart from the Western buildings, this was their Chinese pavilion. And as you can see, very elaborate, beautifully done with Chinese style ornamentation, especially those figures on the roof, I think, which were there supposedly to ward off evil spirits. That's what even in Chinese art, that's what they say about it. They also had this bridge with these sort of Western models there. And I couldn't resist adding Bex into this. So Bex is an actor, among other things, and is flamboyant, etc. But so she's right beside one of those. But here again, what you see is this kind of mixture here, leaning on the Western elements, I think. And again, I think there were major sort of political reasons for them to do this, plus the fact, that the king and the royal families and so forth, they had Western tutors, people like Anna and others, so they were well schooled. This was not just Thai workmen imagining what it would be like. They had real workmen doing these things. So that was the kind of one of the major historical interludes here that I'm going to put in here. Much of what I'm going to be showing you, however, is how we enjoyed ourselves as sightseers. Now, this was the most amazing place. It's called the Mekong Train Market. So you have this train track, and in the you have the stalls on the left and the right, and the train tracks there. And let's see if I can get this going right. The train coming through. You could ride on this train. It's a commuter train, like it. So, and they kept on shooting people off the tracks, and people would jump down to the tracks to take more pictures, etc. I think so. Let me when we get to when the train leaves, look at what happens.
Yeah.
This is all city south.
Yeah. Yeah, there are people on there.
But as you can see, it was not a short train, it had multiple cars.
Never gonna watch that.
Been a short train. The train stopped because they had to get off the tracks.
This is the market oil train.
Oh, now it's speeding it up. Okay, now look at what happens here.
Oh, watch it come.
And then the shops put up all their awnings. Anyhow, so that was a fun stuff.
Is there anything like that anywhere else in the world?
Not that I know of. I mean, there may be, who knows? So not too far away from there is another market that we went to, the famous floating market. Although I should mention, when I was a kid, we went to the floating market, and then that was one that was much closer to Bangkok. And now I think Bangkok is so built up that the floating market here is more off in the countryside. But this is part of a set of canals, and it is literally a market, you know, where people buy and sell things, such as, for example, the woman on the upper right. You know, she has all her goods and she's there in the boat selling things to people. You can see things down below. And
Quality like the canals there.
I wouldn't want to drink it.
Okay.
I think so.
Do they use the canals for their sewage?
Um,
Do they have?
I think that there are attempts to be more proper, you know, but you know, this area is crisscrossed with canals and so forth, and so I'm not sure the total answer to that, you know, what they do, but I'm sure to some extent they do use the things with the sewage.
Coming to buy it from boats or from the land?
Yeah, you can access it both ways, but here is another one. So we got up in the boat and was touring around the canal. I have two of these. I have one that goes way back into the canals, back in the countryside. That's fun, but not as evocative of the market itself.
I still have some saffron that I bought.
Yeah. Oh, lots of stuff.
I will say this, that they have stuff for tourists,
Yeah.
such as me,
Right.
and which is not.
Yeah.
The curry powder? Yeah, the curry powder. That's what it was.
So all of the boats use these motors with the long, as you can see right there. And how they manage not to chew the other boats out, I'm not sure, but they all use it. It would, absolutely, yeah. And you can see those engines are quite big there.
Quite the trolling motor.
Yeah.
Now, was this tour arranged, this boat ride, or did you get a taxi? Was it more like, or less like a taxi?
So the boat rides we did, I mean, we had, you know, we did have tour guides with us as part of our thing. And so they arranged for the boats. We had maybe 4 or 5 boats to fill us all in. Now here it's turning here, and we're going into a more covered market area where the boats go. Right. I'm sorry.
Market?
Fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had big storefronts in back as well. We could go ahead. Okay, I guess that was the end of that one. Huh? So
It's a real flavor for
right.
being
So that day was Christmas Eve. So this is our Christmas tour. And so we did not do a lot of Christmasing things. As a matter of fact, we decided before with the whole group, let's not exchange presents. And it made good sense. So one thing we didn't have to worry about. But also, our itinerary was packed. Now, the one thing on Christmas Eve, Mary and I, this is a dinner that we had. That's Paul and Jan back there. But did go to the Christmas Eve service at 11 o'clock at Christ Church, which is the Anglican church in Bangkok. It was there when I was a kid, and we did various things there. I mean, my parents weren't, they were Presbyterian, but still, it was a lovely place. And we went into the service and the place was packed. Hundreds of people were there for a midnight service.
Church?
Oh, there were a number, although
In the-
my parents were primarily linked to a major Chinese church because they went to Thailand having been in China. So the idea was that they had Chinese and therefore were put in that. There was also an English language sort of union Protestant church that we would go to. Usually it had an afternoon service that we would go to regularly. But on occasions, we went to Christ Church. Christ Church was also where they had the Cub Scout troop that I was in, etc. So I do have a lot of memories of that. But this is the only churchy thing you're going to see. So from Thailand, we flew up to Chiang Mai, and the city in the north that I was mentioning. And one of the really fascinating things we did was it was one of the first things we did in Chiang Mai was to spend a morning with this family, the Ran Kyu Yen On family. They are a good representative of the Lana culture, which is different from the predominant Thai culture elsewhere. But this family, this house and setup had been in their house for their family for generations. This individual here, as you can see in the middle, had been a tour guide for a long time, but now basically he gives these presentations to tourists, who come in. Here we see him giving a whole history of his family. On the left, those photographs are his ancestors. There's a great deal of veneration for the ancestors there that they had. He was a delightful individual. The building itself was basically a kind of a rural Thai style. Much of it was on an upper level, and we had a big crowd. It was our group plus one other group that morning, so there was a lot of people talking about that. But one of the key things, it was a cooking class too. So one of the things you have here in the upper left, you have my sons and Max grinding things with pestles, etc. I was just being lazy watching them do that. And then once they had all of these ingredients together, then they cooked it. As you can see with the stir frying there, with my grandsons, especially being obvious there. Those are some of the ingredients that they added into it on the lower left. And so that was really a delightful experience, give one a sense of what the sort of local families were like. It is old. It is trying to think.
Spices are different.
The spices are somewhat different. People can tell it's one or the other. I can't give you a better example of that. Yeah.
Could you stay overnight at a place like a hostel, or were you just?
Not in this place.
Got the tour and left?
Yeah. I mean, this was really a family gathering. Their extended family lived there, and they had some banana plantation orchards behind them, etc. A stream. We went sort of walking through the whole thing, but this is only a place to come in during the day. I think there are places where one can go to more Thai style. I mean, there are certain accommodations. Thailand is hugely popular in terms of tourists. Yeah.
John, just quickly, what was the weather like when you're there? You were ahead of rainy season, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, we chose that on purpose, and we had basically great weather. I mean, the Thai seasons are the rainy season comes in the summer. Right before the rainy season in March, April is the hottest time of the year. When it's not uncommon for the temperature to be 98 degrees and the humidity to be 90%. Whereas this time of year was much better. As it turned out, Christmas to New Year's was also the peak tourist time. So the hotel expenses were high, et cetera, just because not just the Thais plus foreigners all realized that it was a prime time to go, and people have their vacations. Our timeline, by the way, was determined by the school schedules of my grandchildren,
Yeah, that's the way it is.
so that they could do that without missing school. So we saw all kinds of spectacular temples. This one, if you recall the group shots that I showed you at the beginning, you could see a valley behind. So this is up on a mountain just to the northwest of Chiang Mai, a place called Doi Sate, where they have this huge temple up there. It's new. It's not terribly historic, but it is just fabulous to look at, with all of the gold work, et cetera, that you have there. So that's one shot of there. Another one here with more of it. And so we are way up at the top of this hill or mountain, if you will. That's my sister-in-law, Chris, and her son, Jonathan, who's a Korean adoptee. Great kid. Not kid anymore. None of them are kids anymore. And then later that day, actually, people were exhausted. So it was only a small group of us went to yet one more temple right in the heart of Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai has an old city part, kind of a rectangle, and right in the center of that is this wat called Wat Chedi Luang. This was a gigantic stupa that collapsed in an earthquake a couple of 100 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago or so. And they have decided to leave it as it is and not to rebuild it. This is the group that made it to that. One interesting thing about this wat, and wat, by the way, is the term for temple. So you will see that wat again and again.
Collapsed.
Yes.
Right up there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one that collapsed. Right. Is that the figure here? This temple is also part and parcel of the Lana history of their own glory in the past, and I think this is a Lana king, from times past, and there were various stories about him, etc. But and this was one of the interiors of one of these temples. In fact, I think it may be the one that's right behind the figure up there. With all kinds of built, and a lot of these temples also had these panoramas with kind of city scenes or religious scenes, lives of the Buddha, etc. That were often done in gorgeous detail.
The equivalent of a stained glass window, isn't it, really?
In a sense,
To tell the story of.
yeah, I think, yeah.
Are there artists like iconographers that they have like iconographers that as an actual position to
I think that the monks basically are.
monk?
The monks do it, and they probably have monks who specialize, who are good painters and so forth, who do it. But I believe it's sort of all internally done. This complex also had a variety of buildings that were of different sort of national styles, so it was a very interesting one. So the next day we went and saw elephants, and this was Elephant Sanctuary of the King. This was an area to the south of Chiang Mai. And this was an elephant sanctuary that, in fact, was in the process of rescues and so forth. Elephants that had gone ill or whatever. There are still elephants that are used for commercial purposes, especially for logging, for lumber work and so forth, which they had a lot of before. But this sanctuary had certainly over 100 elephants or so. And they've obviously welcomed the tourists in one way or another. Here you can get a sense of more of it, and that's Philip, I think, feeding the elephants, and everybody was doing that, and the elephants were well trained for that. Those were a couple of tourist kids, not our group, who got on this elephant that was bathing in the river. They got sop wet, but they had a good time. So anyhow, and again, this was, there are some elephant sanctuaries, where the picture is much grimmer, in terms of what the position is for the elephants and so forth. But this apparently was one of the best of the sanctuaries in Thailand. That same day, we were outside of Chiang Mai and we visited some other temples. This one is especially interesting because the style of this temple is Burmese. And there are sort of ethnic Burmese in Thailand as well. And so the if you look at the roofing and so forth, is a little more sort of jagged and angular that you have there. On the right, that interior there is interesting because a wood floor like that you don't find in most Thai temples, and this is polished wood. You could have been in a gentleman's club or something almost in terms of the beauty of the wood that they had. But it did give us some sense of the variety of temples that existed. There were some others that I'm not sticking in just for purposes of time, but again, we had a lot of variety in terms of these things.
All that stuff, those objects,
Right.
were they for religious purposes, for decorative purposes?
I think in many cases, these may have been donations, from the faithful. I mean, one of the key things in, Thai Buddhism, by the way, is, I don't know how many of you, have studied, Buddhism in the past, but the two biggest schools of Buddhism is the Mahayana school and the Theravada or Hinayana school. The Theravada Hinayana is the earlier one, a little closer to the original teachings of the historic Buddha. And one of the issues there was to gain enlightenment, it was very, very difficult. You had to be a monk meditating for ages and so forth in order to gain enlightenment. And Thais often did become monks, but the idea of being able, because they are primarily Theravada in Thailand, the Mahayana school developed in response to that, saying, this is too restrictive. People ought to be able to achieve nirvana or Buddhahood more easily than that. And so the Mahayana tradition, which you see mainly, that's the main tradition in China, in Korea, in part of Vietnam, although not entirely, but also in Japan, was that. So but within that, one of the key things is to gain merit. And they do believe in reincarnation, and that if you lead a very good life, if you gain a lot of merit, you're going to do better in the next life. And at some point, you might do so well that you could become a lifetime monk and gain enlightenment. But that's not, that's a long-term process. And so I think in many of these cases, those may be gifts. The other thing, we were never up early enough to do this, but in the early mornings across Thailand, the monks go out with bowls, and the faithful, the householders and so forth, give them food. And they go back and eat that and share it with others and so forth. And that is done as a way of gaining merit. So they're in saffron robes. It's quite, again, we didn't see any of them given what we were doing on our trip. Couldn't resist here. We went to a cabaret and it was a very, this is in Chiang Mai, and it was a very well done show. I mean, it was well produced and significant and so forth. These are all actors in drag basically, and one of the things that they did was to bring out volunteers from the audience. So here, what you can see here is, first of all, that's Max there, and then I think that that one is Tim. So they took these volunteers, they took them backstage, and they decked them out like this. And I decided not to. I have a 2-minute video of Tim being crazy in it. Anyway, if you're interested, I can show you. Actually,
Black wig.
Is that him? I'm.
Lower right.
No, I don't think so. That's certainly Tim up here. After he's been decked out. Yeah. Actually, Mark Epstein and I are going to do a 2-hour version of this for Lyceum in another week or two, and we are going to use that video for that. So, anyhow, but afterwards, then the actors all came up and would come wrap around you, they would all want money, so, but it was an interesting experience. Now, another thing that happened when we were in Chiang Mai was that getting together with some old friends from Bangkok past, two in particular. So on the left, the gentleman here, his name is Mark Tumtai. He and I are the same age, and we basically grew up together, and as very close friends. His father was a Thai doctor, very respected. His mother was from Rhode Island, and so they had this very, successful marriage. She ran a kindergarten that I went to, my siblings went to, and so forth. So Mark and I were very close. Mark is now a philosophy professor at a university in Chiang Mai. He was in Bangkok before that, working on ethics, working on sort of relations, peace relations, and so forth. In problem areas in Thailand, etc. A remarkable person. On the right, you have the individual on the far right. His name is Peter Downs. So the Downs family was another family, another Presbyterian missionary family. They had 6 children, but they matched up with us, for 3 of them at least, with me and my siblings. So Peter was the same age as Paul, right behind him. And there was another, the one I was closest to was Tim Downs, who has retired as a very successful UCC minister in Georgia, and is very active, still doing things. So Peter had his career with USAID, the late USAID, and worked all over the world and so forth, including a lot of time in Burma as well. So we had kind of a day free for people to do things, and so that's what my siblings and I did. Phil and Max went on a tour in the countryside. Mark and Debbie had friends who happened to be in Chiang Mai, so they spent the day with them. And that was our last Chiang Mai day. So from there, we went to the beach. And so we've sort of ended the serious sightseeing part. So here we're getting to the fun part of our trip. We did that on purpose. We thought, on a 2-week tour, people are going to get exhausted, from one thing to another. So let's have more fun at the end. So what to do? We went to Krabi, which is the one after this. Hue Hin, nobody's heard of Hue Hin. I mean, Hue Hin is a popular tourist spot, but it's not in the international eye or anything like that. Hue Hin is the name of, up here, I mean, the town of Hue Hin, it is a good-sized town. It actually has a royal summer palace as well, a golf course and various things. So there is that. And then down here is a mountain that you will see in the background. So this is a long beach. It's spectacular. It's fine sand, no rocks whatsoever. And right in the middle of that is a place called Nong Khae. Now, back when we started going there, so this was the Presbyterian mission had a group of 6 cottages along the beach there, and that was our vacation spot for 2 decades or so. We would go down there at the beginning. We would go down sometimes for a month. My father would be in Bangkok, but my mother would be managing things. So I have all these memories, from that. To get there, though, roads were terrible and so forth. So we took a train, and the train for the 200 miles or so from Bangkok took about 10 hours. And when it finally stopped, it did stop at the little town of Nong Khae. It stopped for like 90 seconds. And so when it stopped, we were organized. The windows were open. People would dump all of the stuff out the windows to get it out before the train started up again. And here we are. This is a date. This is probably from 57, 56, maybe a little later. It's certainly the 50s, after having arrived there. So you have, again, the young missionary family there. My father in what looks like a Hawaiian shirt. My sister was born in 54, so probably this is 57 or 58, when you had that. And from there, then we took sort of little rickshaws and so forth to get us into the place. Today, that whole area is totally urbanized. The Nong Khae is still recognized there, but apart from that, you really would not recognize it. Now, this is what it looked like before. It was a wonderful place to vacation. as you can see. So there was this path that went along a path. There were 6 different cottages that we stayed at. There was an open air thing, the term entire sala, right in the middle here, that area, and for religious purposes, they would have retreats and so forth, and so that's where they worshipped. It was open air, but you know, they had benches and so forth for seating. Another shot from that, my equestrian history there. That's me and my sister, but also the same place. You have the sala there. So this is more or less the same vantage point as the slide I just showed you before that. So some more slides of early on. Oh, so this was a collection that I think my sister may have put together of pictures of the whole thing. The entire thing goes all the way across. So what I did here is that this goes to the right of up there for the whole thing, but you have these cottages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 over here, all along the beach, you know, with these sandy paths going along. And again, it was a terrific place to do that. With all those cottages, you know, then the Downses were there and so forth, you know, so it was a sort of a heavenly thing for the children involved.
And the sea was safe, you didn't get eaten by a shark.
No, there were jellyfish, but no sharks or anything. So more early shots here. This is very early on.
Sunscreen then?
I doubt it, it hadn't been invented.
Yes, I don't remember. So, anyway, and here's 2 more. So that's the mountain I was mentioning back there. And at that point, you still had fishermen in fishing boats along this. And at this point, that entire beach area has been developed. You know, and no longer do you have any fishing villages. You have condos and you have various kinds of things like that. But one way to see that, whoops. This is what it's like today. It's a Hyatt resort, 5-star. But we decided early on, we're going to stay there. And the footprint of the Hyatt is exactly the same as the mission property.
Oh, wow.
So they took all of that and developed that. And there's the mountain there, you know, the beach as one looks to the right, that's to the south from there. There it is at night. And on the right is a Hanukkah celebration. Several of our members were Jewish, and my daughter-in-law, Conrad's wife, is Jewish. And so we did celebrate Hanukkah there, as well as in Chiang Mai in different places. But that we had there. And in the night, you know, the Hyatt lights things up, you know, quite beautifully. Now, here's another interesting thing.
I mean, I'm sure the Hyatt had the old pictures, but it'd be
They did
interesting.
not advertise them. This is the interesting thing, though. The picture in the upper left is from that long thing that I showed you. That house and what was known as the McFarland House. The houses were named after famous missionaries in the past. So one of those. That's the one thing that Hyatt has maintained with what you see down below. It's the same structure. And it's now their fancy restaurant. And they still call it McFarland. So they've maintained the name.
But you said that area is not especially known amongst international tourists. So most of the people who are there, are they actually Thai?
There are lots of Thai tourists, lots of Chinese tourists too, but also, I mean, there were certainly, you know, foreigners, Europeans and Americans, but it just did not have the cachet of something like Phuket. So anyway,
Does a dollar go a long ways there? I mean, like, is it?
it's still
expensive
pretty
or-
well. I mean, Thailand is not that expensive, you know, for travel, and most of our expenses were taken over by the tour itself.
Meals?
Yeah, but I mean, but we got very reasonable meals. We never paid outlandishly for our meals that we had. So we had one full day in Hue Hin or in Nong Khae, and Philip and I decided to go further south to an amazing park or nature preserve known as the Bengboa Nature Center. As you can see from here, the interesting thing about it, it's on the mountains that you see form the sort of the western edge of a big batch of mountains going to the coast. And the whole thing is a national park there. So this is only the western end, but the mountains stop immediately, and then you have this long area of swamps and marshes and so forth. And they have created it so you have these walkways so that you can go walking among it. You can see the local animals and so forth. And so Phil and I had a great day, sort of, going around on that. Here you can see again some of the mountains there. A nice shot of Phil, as we were, going along there. So anyhow, that was something that he and I did that nobody else did, and I'm certainly delighted that we did it. It was nice. Sorry.
What sort of wildlife did you see?
Fish and lots of birds of various sorts. There is other wildlife, but we did not see that ourselves.
Wow.
And then Krabi, to get from going into Krabi, actually, we took at our insistence, we took a day-long bus ride, that took us further and further south. The tourist agents didn't like that at all. They'd say, "We'll fly you," and we'd say, "We want to see the countryside." And so it was a great ride. I don't have illustrations of that, but it got us down to Krabi, where the landscape is spectacular. It has all of these karst formations that are quite gorgeous. So this was the waterfront at Krabi. I put that in there. I think that's a marlin. I couldn't resist it, but also the Christmas decorating. It says "Merry Christmas, Happy New Year." So Christmas and New Year's is just a big time to celebrate for most Thai. This is the hotel that we stayed at, or at the top of the hotel. It's one of these, what do they call it? And the hotel was like at that level, 5 or 6 stories above the street level. And there were so the street was between the infinity pool and the buildings there. And then you have all of these karst-like mountains that are there, just making for an amazing, sort of surrounding. At the top, you can see there are a lot of those are actually not fishing boats, those are tourist boats to go out on the water, which is something that we did the next day after this. Here we have Conrad and Tim, my oldest and youngest sons, enjoying a beer at Krabi. And then we took this day-long boat ride, out into these islands. And again, they're just as spectacular as you can see this here. A bunch of them we could swim, and that is my brother Paul swimming, being carefully looked after by my sister and by Tim. And he had a good time, although we had to sort of crawl up into the boats, and it was an elaborate thing. And he often uses a wheelchair, so it was a production, but we had lots of good, young, healthy help, and so we was able to get that done okay, and he had a good time. Another couple of shots, from that day that we had. That's Debbie Epstein and my sister on the left. Tim and Bex, once again, they're very photogenic, so it's hard to avoid them. And then here we have a picture that was taken of the whole group during our boat ride of that day. So this was almost at the end of our travels. I think the day after that was a day of flying back to Bangkok, spending a night in Bangkok, and then taking off in our various directions. Now the Epsteins and actually Rachel Beal and I then went from there to Cambodia. And that's a whole different subject. We spent about 5 days in Cambodia at Angkor Wat and the like. But in any case, so this is a good way of remembering it. But then I couldn't resist this infinity pool. And it was, you swam out and you got to the edge and you looked down and it was just straight down.
How far down was it from that edge?
Well, down to the street level. I mean, and that edge didn't drop straight into the street. It was probably 3 stories down from there.
Wow.
The street was another couple of stories beyond that. further down. So anyhow, it's a beautiful country. And we had great weather, by the way. We did not have rain anywhere. So we were very, very lucky, I think.
It's clean.
It's
You don't see trash anywhere there. They don't throw trash out like.
some places you do, but basically,
Here.
it's really pretty clean. I would say having just come from South Korea is a little cleaner, I think. But it does not, it does not strike you as a big garbage pit or anything like that.
Do you get a yearning for Thai food? And if so, where do you go? Thai time?
Yeah.
I usually go to Thai time here. I mean, Thai is good, but Thai time is the one I usually do. My one gripe is that they don't have the sticky rice mango dessert. Have you ever had that? If you ever have a chance, it's one of the great desserts. That they have to have good mangoes, and they add coconut sauce on it with sticky rice, a sweet sticky rice. Their explanation here is that they just don't have a dependable supply of good mangoes in order to do it. But again, if you're at a restaurant, say in the city or whatever, and they have that, I would say get it. Okay, we're at the end of our hour and actually the end of the slides. Any quick questions?
People do for commerce? Do they make textiles and,
Well, I mean, Thailand is in many ways it's high tech. I mean, they have all kinds of
manufacturing?
very modern things. I mean, they do obviously have traditional arts. They have textiles, metalworking, and all of those things. They have a big agricultural scene, fishing, etc. But I mean, a lot of it is sort of modern manufacturing, IT stuff, and so forth.
A
So
lot of subcontractors.
okay, there you go.
There is
Yeah.
companies all over the world.
Anyhow, so thank.